And how are you?
Yeah, quite well, quite well.
Tell me how's the rain in Brisbane?
Um, Sunday night was an absolute shocker. I've never seen so much water fall out of the sky in all my life. So yeah, it was really quite eventful. I mean, I was okay here. I mean, the ground and everything is absolutely sodden. It's just like mud.
Yeah.
But lots of parts of Brisbane, yeah, they really copped a hiding with it. Yeah. But that's what happens when you get a lot of rain that falls out of the sky and nowhere for it to go. So.
Yeah. But is it? We just been watching the news 2 minutes ago, but they just showed New South Wales.
Yeah, well, the weather system seems to be going down south and even gathering strength in some ways. So,
yeah, it is. It says that in the flooded areas, there's another storm going to happen.
Yeah, well, they're predicting storms here again tomorrow. So
okay.
Whatever falls out of the sky again has got nowhere to go, really. So it'll just turn into runoff pretty quickly, I guess. Yeah.
And what are there a lot of houses underwater?
There have been, yeah. I think there was, from memory, close to 2,000, I think.
Wow. So. Okay. Okay. And where are those people? Are they?
Just in like recovery centres and stuff like that. But that's going to be the issue for them: is where do they go while they repair the damage? Because like housing is just at a really chronic shortage here, and you can't rent a house for love nor money. So yeah, it's got some real big challenges ahead of it, that's for sure. Yeah. And even now, I think there's still something like about 450 roads that are still closed.
Wow.
So,
yeah. Goodness me. Yeah. And anybody that you know personally?
No, not really. I mean, there's a few people who, had a bit of water into their place, but not significant damage. Like a lot of the houses that went under, they went up to like ceiling level.
Goodness, yeah.
So you're talking about more than 2 meters of water through the house. So, and it came up very, very quickly. It came up in just a matter of hours, and it's been quite tragic, really. So
yeah. And listening to the people that were interviewed on the TV, they all were complaining that they were given no warning, given no SMS, which they would expect to say, evacuate your house, or there's going to be flooding or potential flooding, or none of that. And
it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because the original forecast, like the Weather Bureau forecast for the flooding of the Brisbane River, for example, I think they said it would probably be like 2.8 meters. But within a matter of hours, it went up to like 3.5 and 3.9 or something, and it just wasn't expected, just the amount of water that fell out of the sky, and so, I mean, people like to blame others on that, but I mean, the fact of the matter is you're dealing with the weather. I mean, who knows what the weather's going to do, so, and, when it comes down, it really comes down. And if it's got nowhere to go, then it just goes up. And one of the features, or like the attributes of the Brisbane River, is that it's a very fast flowing river.
Right.
And so anything that sort of gets pushed into the river, like it
disappears.
Well, it ends up, like 200 kilometers up north, because when it comes out of the river into the bay, it seems to take a left-hand turn. That must be where the way the currents go or something. And so they've got lots of pontoons and boats and all sorts of like trees and everything, all, up to a couple of 100 kilometers away north, that have come out of the river. So, so yeah, so it's going to be a challenge, and But like they sort of said that the last big flood that we had was in 2011, and they sort of said, oh, that was a 1 in 500 year event or something. Well, so was this one.
Yeah.
So between 2011 and 2022, it's been 500 years apparently.
Yeah. And your work premises?
They had a lot of leaky roof, which created a fair bit of damage in terms of like suspended ceilings and wet carpets and stuff like that. And they couldn't open the store on Monday because it was just too dangerous. But in comparison to what other businesses that have suffered, it's it's neither here nor there.
So it wasn't flooded then?
No, they I mean, they're up reasonably high.
Okay.
But having said that, probably about 600 meters away, there was significant flooding, so.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously it's, quite tragic in terms of the damage and the heartache and all of that sort of thing. But I mean, that just seems to be the nature of weather these days, is that it just seems to be that when an event comes, it just seems to be more extreme, whether it's a bushfire or whether it's a flood or whether it's a drought, or it just seems the impact of it seems to be heightened,
Yeah.
And the other thing in the back of my mind is like it was a new moon, I think on Monday, I think it was.
Okay.
So I'm, maybe that's just me, but I just wonder whether the heightened energy around a new moon might have, had a part to play in the whole thing. I mean, I don't know.
I'm sure it does. I mean, but there's so much that we don't appear to know as much as I think we should with our latest technology and the satellites and
for sure. And whether, or like maybe the technology is there, but the overwhelming ignorance associated with the environment in which we live, I've heard lots and read lots of stories, about farmers who collected weather information over generations, and their understanding of the land on which they lived, was quite remarkable. And they could see the warning signs of whether it was a flood or whatever, a fair way in advance. So they could see the changing weather patterns and that, and the way the animals were behaving.
Yes, the animals can too. Yeah, and insects. Ants.
Yeah, and migratory birds and ants. All of a sudden, the ants are starting to build their nests with, building up or moving to higher ground or whatever. Well, they know it's coming.
Yeah. That's why it's strange. That's why it's peculiar. And also, with technology, people can affect the climate too. I've seen some articles where people can influence the climate, or create rain where there was no rain. Okay.
Yes. Well, some of the indigenous communities were like that, didn't they? They had their ceremonies where they could, create rain. And
the same in Africa.
But all of that sort of knowledge and understanding seems to have gone, So
I don't know if it's gone. I'm wondering whether it's actually been misused.
Misused or suppressed, yeah, for sure. Because it seems to me like, even just from a personal perspective, like as your consciousness, your awareness levels increase, and I guess from an energy perspective, you're operating at a higher vibrational level. There's lots of things that just happen like take Moya, for example. I mean, he could bring a thought to mind and it just manifests. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
he could be sitting in a coffee shop and he might think, oh, milk, and all of a sudden the waiter appears with some milk. I
yeah,
mean, that's probably a
yeah.
silly example, but you
No,
know
it's
what I
not
mean?
silly. No, I know what you
Yeah,
mean. I mean, I know
yeah,
what you mean.
yeah,
He has got to be particularly careful,
mm,
okay, because he doesn't want to try and obstruct anything that is moving and taking, and so he's
mm,
got to
mm,
be very careful not to interfere in the slightest way.
mm, mm,
Okay,
mm,
it's got to take
mm,
uh,
mm,
its path,
mm.
and so
and I think, as you say, like if there are, black hats out there who are operating at a certain vibrational level, well, then, they can use that for self-interest rather than collective benefit. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah.
Probably
And
has a huge karmic load associated with it, but notwithstanding that, while they're doing it, it happens, doesn't it? So,
yeah, but I think I don't know, some of the satanic people in our environment. I wonder, in actual fact, whether they have a soul at all. Okay, whether their soul hasn't been
mm,
taken and burnt, and I don't know if it's even possible. I'm just, but
mm. Well, that's right. Who knows? Who knows?
yeah,
I mean, but it's certainly not within the realms of. It's certainly possible. That's for sure.
mm,
So
mm,
certainly possible. Because I guess if you're operating at that level of darkness, at those sorts of energy levels, and it's something that I have to confess I don't understand, but there are people who choose to manipulate it. As I said, it might be at great karmic expense, but
oh, it absolutely is. But they're not interested in that.
no,
They are literally, as you would read those old books about devils and all sorts of demons and things like that. When they die, they really live in a whole dimension of their own. Okay, where with everybody else it's the same. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
um, and
mm,
and then they got to come back and
mm,
do it all
mm,
over again and either make it worse for themselves or somehow
mm.
get out of it. But, yeah. Anyway,
No, it's interesting, but that's, as I said, that's the nature of the weather these days, and perhaps part of it is just because of the with the planetary alignment and stuff like that. Maybe that's part of it,
yeah.
but it just seems to me that the impact of it, and I suppose the other thing we probably need to sort of be mindful of too is like the population has probably never, well, probably hasn't never been this large, so that when you have an adverse weather event, it affects more people. So.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, Sue and I were a few moments ago watching the news to get an update on the storms. We were saying, in Perth, all the suburbs, all the area sort of where we are, Perth is just a flat countryside. Okay, what happens when there's a flood? Okay, where does the water go? Okay,
Sideways.
you know, yeah, I guess it just builds up, and and most of the freeways have got walls running on either side of them. So,
yeah. And I don't know what the tidal impact is over in the west. I can't really remember, but here in Brisbane, the tides are reasonably large. So when you have a high tide, it exacerbates the flood or the effect of the flood because the water just can't get away. It backs up.
Yeah. I don't know either. Yeah. So But
And the largest dam in the area, when they release water from it, it takes about 24 hours to work its way through the system. So it's there's lots of factors at play, that's for sure.
yeah.
Because a lot can happen in 24 hours. So if you've got a lot of water coming down the system as a result of a release from a dam, and then you get a heavy downpour in the meantime, well then, there's only so much capacity, isn't there?
Yeah.
But the rate at which the dam filled is just astronomical. Before the weather event, it was sitting at like 63% full, something like that.
Yeah.
And then within 2 or 3 days, it went up to 187%. So that gives you an idea of the size of the rainfall, and the size of that dam is huge. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was something like 10 Sydney harbours or something like that, equivalent of water. So it's a huge dam. So it's hard to sort of get your head around, the volume of water, within just a matter of a few days. I mean, I know around here, like for example, I've got a swimming pool out there which I had empty, because I'm doing some repairs and so on to it. And on Monday morning, it was completely full.
Goodness me. Goodness. Yeah. And that was just from direct rain, not any running in from the sides.
Yeah, just direct rain.
Yeah. Goodness me. Yeah. And a normal adult swimming pool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable one. Like in the deep end of it there, it would be about 8 foot deep, I suppose.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
But that's the power of Mother Nature, though, isn't it? If she wants to do something, she can certainly do it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds, down in New South Wales and that too, because high density population and development policies that have no regard to floodplains and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting that they haven't had. I mean, even in South Africa, there is definitely regulations about floodplains and where you build. Okay.
But that's that in my mind. That's just a symptom of that sort of consumeristic approach, where it's just, it's all about the money, and that short-term view. And if there is a disaster, then someone else picks up the bill. Not my problem.
Yeah. And also, I mean, the number of houses and things they were talking about. I mean, can I know the insurance companies get reinsured as well. So, but there must come a limit at some point where they actually can't afford to pay out anymore.
Yeah. And some of them, weasel words as well, because they say, flood insurance only covers events where the house is damaged when the water comes up through the floor.
Yeah.
So if there's damage as a result of water coming down through the roof, then that's not flood damage.
Okay. But surely that must be covered under something else then other than flood damage.
Yeah, but the thing is that the way they word their policies, and unfortunately people don't look at their policies in any extent. They just make assumptions about it. And there was actually a class action out of the 2011 flood, which was still on foot, all these years later. So
goodness. Yeah.
So it's still a pretty raw issue for a number of people, that's for sure.
And I guess if you were in the same position in 2011, you're still in the same house.
Yeah,
Off
in
it
many
goes
cases,
again.
yeah, off it goes again.
Yeah, and so I guess we don't learn either. Okay.
Well, no, and that's the thing, and then you listen to the dialogue, and people say, "Oh, well, that was a 1 in 500-year event," and you sort of say, "Oh, well, I won't have to worry about that in my lifetime."
Yes, that's right.
And then lo and behold, 10 years later, here we go again.
Yeah, yeah. And are they saying it's worse than 2011?
In some parts, yeah, yes, but it seems to me that every flood has its own sort of characteristics based on where the rain falls, and the impact of tides, and all of those things. I don't think they're ever the same as such.
Okay.
They have their own unique factors, but where the damage is sort of thing. So. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been through a flood, have you? Or...
Well, did I experience a flood? Yes. Okay. The farm that I grew up on, severe flood. They call it a 100-year flood. Okay. And it just took out a large section of the farm. I mean, my father was growing citrus trees, okay, and had thousands of citrus trees. Every single one was lost, okay, including the very large irrigation pump that was on the river to irrigate them as well. Gone, just disappeared. And so yes, but fortunately, it was short of our house by probably vertically up probably about 5 meters or so, okay, which meant probably about 25 meters away from the house, okay. Yeah,
that's still significant damage, though, isn't it? Because
absolutely,
you don't replace fruit trees in a hurry, do you?
No, you don't, and he didn't. He couldn't, So he had to turn to a different type of farming. Okay, so from citrus farming, he turned to lamb farming, sheep farming. Yeah,
That's a big change.
A hell of a change. Yeah. And he slowly pulled each tree out by himself with a tractor. Okay. Over a period of time, you can imagine, so as to turn those lands, into land that could feed the sheep, and the few cattle that he had, but mostly the sheep,
Because citrus orchards are fairly, the trees are in reasonably close proximity to each other too, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Okay. But anyway, it was quite an experience. I wasn't living on the farm then. I had just become an adult, and I was out of the house, and so didn't physically experience it like my dad and mom did, and brother, because my older brother was still there. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So what else is news? Anything exciting at all? Or no?
No, nothing exciting. Any thoughts about anything in particular?
Any thoughts?
I actually had a thought a couple of days ago. It was, we've got this, we've got, what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? It's the double universe, where you exist in, what's the word? Parallel,
yeah.
okay, which is there, but it's a duplicate universe, and so you are duplicated there, okay, apparently, okay. And I thought to myself, my first thought was, I wonder if it's 100% on the same timeline, or isn't it? Okay, and
it's a good thought.
Yeah, and then I thought to myself, I wonder if I can meet myself. Okay. And if it wasn't on the same timeline, you'd say, well, is this what I'm going to look like now? Or hell, that's how I used to look, or whatever. So yeah, that was my.
There's a few thoughts about that, isn't there? Because I've also heard the proposition that there's, I guess for the want of a better term, like an infinite number of parallel universes, which sort of cover off every possibility.
Okay, I haven't heard that one. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not as if you're living a mirrored life, but it's just like with every possibility that could have happened to you, it will happen in one of those universes. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. The only sort of area where I had, historically maybe thought about it many years ago was in places where aeroplanes just disappeared, okay, never to be found again, okay. And so, with this, I enjoy the conspiracy theorists who say, well, that's just the link between two dimensions, okay, your duplicate, and so it's gone through that and continued on its journey, okay, and landed at the airport, okay.
Yeah.
Except there's nobody there to meet them. I don't know, or perhaps there was, okay, and they're unaware of it. But
there was a series, like a fiction series, that I've saw part of. It was that very idea that they left. The plane took off and left, and the typical Hollywood style, flew through a big electrical storm, and when they landed, 5 years had elapsed.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Because you often find that when people give an account of encountering aliens and things like that, their watches stop and they lost 2 hours or 4 hours or something, and so. Yeah, imagine that.
But I mean, it at one level seems to make a lot of sense. That you just skip into another dimension, or whether into another universe is a different thing. But certainly skip into another dimension. That's for sure.
Yeah, but we do know there are other dimensions. Okay, and I guess we travel in other dimensions consciously sometimes in our dreams or in our efforts, like Moya taught us how to do it with our who chant, and I've done it, okay, but I have no idea where I was or what I did. I have no idea. I think I've mentioned to you many years ago, and so it was like flying like Superman, I guess, and the architecture that built of homes or houses or built into the mountains. Okay, I haven't traveled a lot, so I wouldn't know if such things exist. And I went into them, and people couldn't see me. And unfortunately, I hadn't developed, not that I have now, I hadn't developed then the audio, which you can develop further from what is called, or Logos calls, spiritual traveling, not astral traveling. Okay, spiritual traveling. And I would have liked to, because I was in a room and not listening, but watching people talk, and and then, life changed for me. So I also, I suppose if I persevered, maybe I should get back to that again and see, because I sort of felt I was like doing it every day, and then thinking, I don't seem to be progressing towards the audio, so that it could make some sense. I never brought it up. I never spoke to anybody about it, or to let alone to Moya, and because I know what he would have said. He said, "You got to keep on keeping on." Okay, something similar to that. So you don't say what you know, I guess. But yeah, there are other dimensions. There definitely are, and certainly we know that on death as well. But you and I know that. But it's so interesting that so many people in my class and so on really don't believe there's anything after death. Okay, and then there are others who just know that there's heaven and they're going to be very happy, and that's it. But those are people who don't think. Okay.
No, well, that's right. It's almost just a cop out, isn't it?
It is a cop out. It is a cop out. But a lot of people, when you do have an intelligent discussion with them, they say that's just been a conditioning from the beginning of time in order to help people, live their life here. Okay, on the planet, is let's pretend there's a God, and let's pretend there's an afterlife, and let's use that to make sure you're a good boy. Okay. And so a lot of people do believe that.
Yeah, the book of judgment, isn't it? That when you die, this big book gets opened, and so what have you been up to?
Yeah. But that's their philosophy. I mean, I know that's not true. A lot of others think that's a really good logical argument, and that's the way it evolved and developed. And then there are others who think that humanity was started by aliens, and they were enslaved, and the aliens then pretended they were gods and made people worship them and obey them, and that when the aliens left, that they continued. So a lot of interesting theories out there. But thank God for Logos, or
Well, exactly right. Yeah, for the truth. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And thank God for that small number of people who are relentless in the pursuit of it too. So.
Yeah. Do you think optimism is a good thing? And you know what question's going to come after that, so give me your answer.
Is it a good thing?
Is optimism a good thing? To be optimistic?
I guess in the sense of, if it helps people reduce suffering, I suppose it is. But if it comes back to the line of thinking that we just left in terms of the pursuit of truth, I suppose you can have an optimistic outlook, but optimistic in the sense of uncovering the truth. But if you put that aside, I mean, you have to be careful you're just not fooling yourself. So.
Yeah, now that's really the basis of my question, is if you're not fooling yourself, okay? Because, I think that optimism is only optimism if it's followed by action, okay? But optimism for the sake mental exercise, I think it's futile.
Well, that fake it till you make it type.
Yeah, fake it till you make it. Yeah, that's right. So you,
It's sort of funny, because I was listening to some news there the other day, like in the thick of all of that weather event, and there was this sporting coach, just talking about how his team has got nowhere to train at the moment, and da da da. And he kept on saying all through the interview, "Oh, it is what it is. It is what it is." And I thought to myself, "Do you really know what you're saying?" Because
come on, you and I say that sometimes.
well, we do, but we don't say it in the context of. Well, I mean, it was almost like just this resignation. It was just like,
okay, yeah,
nothing I can do about it, So
yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Whereas perhaps my take on it would be, is what it is means, yes, we're in the middle of a weather event.
Yeah. Yes.
And it'll pass, and and we'll stand back up, and off we'll go.
Is it ever? It is what it isn't.
Well, that's right. That's a good question. Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah. Is it ever that? Yeah. I mean, it just struck me at the time when I was listening to him. It was almost like a sort of, again, like a cop out. It was just like,
Yeah.
Is what it is. So if they don't win the next game, well, that's to blame. And my contract is safe. They tell me that a lot of Russian billionaires, are experiencing a high level of stress at the moment.
I don't think so somehow. Okay.
I'm with you.
Yeah, it's just the news media, and the reason I don't think so is because Putin is a white hat, okay, and he's been involved, or the country's been involved with cryptocurrency, okay, but it's also been involved with gold, okay.
Yeah.
So
significant gold holdings, I believe. Yeah.
Yes. So they. Yeah, I don't think these little bank sanctions and things.
Well, no, I mean, I heard there that Biden was crowing about how we're seizing assets like corporate jets and cars and stuff like that. And I thought, well,
yeah, big deal.
Yeah, well, that's right. Big deal.
Big deal. Wow, president. Goodness me. The quicker Trump comes back, the better. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the atmosphere over there must be one where people are starting to think about that again, I guess.
They absolutely are. Well, one thing they are thinking about is somehow a lot of people, even his own party, of getting rid of Biden. Okay.
Yeah. And the deputy seems to be a lame duck, doesn't she? She's,
absolutely. Absolutely. So, I think, I don't know if they'll last as long as the next elections, but which is still 2 years away. But there are certain elections, aren't there, this year?
I'm not sure how the system
works. Yeah,
works.
I'm not sure either now. But I think there's sort of like...
Yeah, they do talk about midterm elections or something.
That's right, yeah. That's not for the president, but it's for the, I don't know, the locals, I think, or something.
Yeah, or the Senate or something.
Something like that, yeah. I'm not sure what it is. And, so... But one's not sure. I think this whole rising of like the truckers, we call it in different parts, and the rioters and things like that. I think that's going to probably pick up momentum. Okay. But I'm talking about America particularly. I'm not worried at the moment about what's happening elsewhere. But I think that could force something. I think Biden has to go. Okay, there's no doubt about it. But it's the manner in which he goes. You see, so if he goes in an orderly sort of manner, then you'll just get another black hat in his place from his party. Okay, but if it gets to a point where he does something stupid, well, that's most of his daily life. But that really affects the whole people, and then there has to be a new election because of that. Okay, then that's what we want. Okay, I would say, because then.
But there's definitely a shift in the world power, though, isn't there? Like between Russia and China. I mean, I think the largest army in the world, as I understand it, is India, but they probably don't have a lot of technology, like compared to say China or certainly to Russia. So they have lots of feet on the ground, or boots on the ground. But in terms of, and the other thing too is what does the next war look like? It might be all about control of the internet, or
but just say with India, they're about to launch from their own indigenous technology a man into space. Okay. And it's only the three other powers that have ever put a man in space. Okay.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So they're going to be the fourth nation to put a man in space, and it's going to probably be at the end of this year. But it's all their own technology. Okay, they're not sharing any technology. So, I haven't researched anything to do with their military might, but let's assume it's following suit, and we might have another quite technologically advanced country as when it comes to war.
Well, the interesting thing about it, even to look at this conflict over in the Ukraine, India's stance on it has been neutral. They're neither for nor against what's going on. So I sort of thought that speaks, fairly loud, doesn't it?
Volumes, it does. It speaks volumes, definitely. And it's interesting. I've always sort of put it in the background, in a sense. And it's only recently since I've been researching that I've even gone to ancient civilizations and used India, and because my historical education has always been pyramids maybe outside of Egypt would be under the sea or in South America or wherever, and yet there's a lot of stuff in India. And
goodness gracious, yes. I mean, a lot of the spiritual traditions come from there, don't they?
Absolutely. And so I'm paying more attention to it now. Just
and some of those spiritual traditions date back, like 15,000 years plus. Like they're not even sure.
Yes, you're quite right. You're quite right. Some of them even talking about 35,000 years. But coming back to what you were saying, there's with Biden being so petty and stopping the banks or something, influencing them. One of the consequences of Biden's petty sanctions is that Russia and the US cannot continue, which they've done indefinitely in the past, collaborate on technology and on space. And NASA has always relied on them, but now they can't. Fortunately, they've got other means. But because of this not being able to collaborate with NASA, will they not turn to China? Or will not, and so, they're both spacefaring nations, and China is definitely the leader of the race at the moment. Okay.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the technologies that they seem to be revealing are just quite breathtaking, aren't they?
Absolutely, absolutely. They so quickly have built a space station that's very effective, and they're now going to build you're going to actually put people on the moon right now. Okay, it's going to be imminent. Okay, so
well, they've got that big project at the moment, haven't they, on the dark side of the moon, haven't they? They've got all sorts of.
Yeah, they've got their rover on that side.
Yeah, and I saw, I can't remember which country it was, but there's a country that's going to put they've got these little drones.
Yeah.
And they're going to put like thousands of them on the moon, apparently, So.
Yeah, like 12,000 or something.
Yeah, so it's some huge number.
Yeah, you're right. But China, but they're involved in other dimensions too, not dimensions, other projects. Okay, and so, but I think also now, I think America is catching up because of the private sector. Okay, and they've issued lots of contracts, just like in the last year, so you've got. You've got.
Well, you look at people like Elon Musk. Like he seems to make incredible technological advances, and has like new generation rockets built within a year.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then people like Boeing, who also got were given money at the same time as Musk, they're still struggling. Okay. So on Twitter, I don't know if Musk was asked, are you an alien? And his reply was, absolutely. So that was it. End of story.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. So.
That's fascinating.
But I don't know if it was relevant on Sunday night. I can't remember. Don't think so. But are you know what Russia is attacking in the Ukraine? Okay, they're attacking the biolabs. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and those biolabs all over Ukraine are funded by China. Okay, but do you know where they're built? Okay, they are built underneath hospitals, underneath atomic power stations.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the first things that they seized, wasn't it? That Chernobyl nuclear power station was one of the first things that they took control of.
And that's what they found. They obviously had intelligence, but they then took control of that, but then they went underground and took control of the laboratories. And they did the same with the hospitals where they knew they were underground. You can't bomb a hospital. So, these maniacs, just thought that was the best place to build and have their things protected. Okay. And, some of them were inside, apartment blocks,
Yeah, residential apartment blocks and things like that.
Yeah. So anyway, it's and I so there might be strain between Russia and China. So Russia's,
but I think China's already come out and giving aid to Russia, aren't they? As I believe.
Yeah, they are. But I'm not sure what, whether it's just speculation that these labs were Chinese funded, like the Wuhan, or whether they're just black hats. Various people around the world that decided to use Ukraine because Ukraine were very happy with the money that they were given to allow that to happen. Under what false pretense, who knows? So it might not have been directly with China.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Yeah. And it just goes to show just how much of that sort of stuff, which is probably within the plain sight of many, many people, but they choose to be blind to it, don't they? So,
Yeah, yeah. Or they're part of it.
or they're part of it. That's true. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I guess if it's putting food on your table and money in your bank, then you're quite happy to be part of it, aren't you?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
on Sunday, we were talking about another term too. Well, I'm just trying to remember what it was that you come up with, and you were going to think on it a bit further. I'm just trying to think what that word was now. Devolution or something like that, was it?
I don't know. I might have scribbled it down. Let me have a look.
Was it devolution? I think it might have been, was it?
No, we had dealt with devolution. I think it was the previous. We were talking about repent, wasn't it?
Oh, repent. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I scribbled it down in my diary.
Yeah.
Repent. And did you think about it? You obviously didn't, because you can't remember.
No, well, I think I felt that we covered the subject fairly nicely. But,
yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Okay, as best as we could. Devolution, I think, was before that.
The week before, you're right.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This week's about flooding. Yeah.
Flooding, yeah, excess water.
Excess water. Yeah.
No one ever stops to think about what the water's point of view is, though, do they?
Yeah.
I think water is one of those substances which has, well, we know it has memory.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
And we know that it can change its molecular structure based on the power of thought.
Quite right.
And we know that it has huge healing qualities. So there's lots of things to think about in terms of, its of cleansing properties. And maybe that's what a flood is about too. It's a sort of a flushing or a cleansing process.
That's really an interesting thought, because immediately you said that, I thought of in South Africa, in the Cape Town, the Western Cape area, you get what they call fynbos, okay, and there are masses of variety of fynbos, okay, but every so many years, okay, for it to survive, it needs to be burnt to the ground. Okay. And now they don't go and start any fires or anything like that on purpose. But like right now, they've had, my brother's town was threatened, Napier, and many kilometers of mountains and valleys and things were burnt. Okay. And there were farms destroyed and so forth as well in that process. But it's something that the fynbos needs, okay, in order to flourish. Now, when you said, maybe the water, maybe it is a cleansing in the flooded areas, okay, and that would really be an interesting topic to think about. Is water. Water, yeah, really would be. You've given me something to think about. Let me jot it down. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to hearing your dissertation on it on Sunday night.
So. And yours. But even if we didn't, we just picked it up on Sunday again.
Yeah. Well, let's do that. Let's talk about water.
Let's talk about water on Sunday. Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. A good place then to leave off. Yeah. As usual, thank you very much.
And you too. And you have a good week. ahead
Yeah.
too.
And I hope you have a dry week.
Yeah, not much chance of that, but that's okay.
Okay, well, go for a swim then.
Go for a swim. That's right.
Go and cleanse. Go and cleanse in your own pool.
Yeah, go and stand in the rain. That's right.
Stand in the rain. Well, there must be a reason that the water that landed up in your pool landed up in your pool. Okay, it didn't land up in the river or the next door neighbor. It landed up in Don Jones's pool.
Yeah.
So now jump in your pool and say thank you.
I will. Okay. See you
Don,
later.
cheers, man.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.